Working as an instructor at a sewing studio, I often saw people use a serger as is, without checking settings or making adjustments. Their projects look a lot like these: loose seams that are weak and likely to split, or seams that are malformed, puckered, and curled. I'm here to tell you that there's a better way, and that you can take control of your serger to get results you'll be proud of. The road to better serging starts by getting comfortable with your serger's thread tensions. Many sewists never touch the tension adjustments on their sergers because there are so many of them and they look imposing. But in this video, we'll break down those controls into groups and adjust each group in turn, step by step. Before we get started, some of you may have a serger with automatic thread tension. These machines do not have tension controls. If you have one of these machines, this video is also for you. You'll learn what the machine is doing for you, and you'll understand how to troubleshoot in case you aren't getting the results you want. And we'll look at some secret controls on these machines later on in this video. First, thread your machine for a 4-thread overlock stitch. Use a separate color of thread for each needle and looper so you can see how each thread contributes to the finished stitch. In this video, the left needle thread is red, the right needle thread is green, the upper looper is blue, and the lower looper is gold. Next, turn all tension dials to their middle positions as indicated by your owner's manual. This gives you a reasonable starting point to work from. Then, get some scrap fabric and serge a test seam. It's best to use the same fabric and number of layers as your project. Your serger has 4 tension dials, and they belong to one of 2 groups. We will first adjust the looper tensions, and then we will adjust the needle tensions. Check your owner's manual if you need help identifying them. Let's start with the looper threads. Here is what the looper threads in a perfectly balanced serger stitch should look like. In a balanced stitch, the upper loops meet the lower loops exactly at the cut edge of the fabric. The upper and lower looper thread tensions engage in a tug-of-war of sorts. In a balanced stitch, the loops meet exactly at the fabric edge in a stalemate. If the looper tensions are out of adjustment, the loops will meet on the upper side or underside of the fabric. We want to balance the tensions so both loops meet each other right at the fabric edge. Change only one setting at a time when you make adjustments. Turn the tension dial just 1/2 or even 1/4 of a notch. Then run another test stitch. Let's look at a seam that is out of adjustment. The loops meet on the upper side of the fabric instead of at the edge. This means that the upper looper tension is winning the tug-of-war, and the lower looper tension is losing the battle. That can mean one of 2 things. The upper looper tension is too tight and is pulling the lower looper to the upper side. Or the lower looper tension is too loose and the excess lower looper thread ends up on top. So, how can you tell which problem you are facing? Let's look for some clues that one side is too tight or too loose. If the lower looper thread looks loose and loopy, try raising its tension. If the upper looper thread looks tight, is pulling the needle threads out of place, or is warping and curling the edge of the fabric, try lowering its tension. Once you have made the adjustment, run another test stitch and check to see that the stitch has improved. Keep adjusting until you get a balanced stitch. If the loops meet on the underside of the fabric, you have the opposite situation. The lower looper is winning the tug-of-war. Again, this can mean one of 2 things. The upper looper is too loose, or the lower looper is too tight. If the upper looper thread looks a bit loose, try raising its tension. If the lower looper thread looks tight, try lowering its tension. Again, Try a test stitch and refine the adjustment further if needed. There's one final set of problems we can encounter with the loopers, and that happens when both the upper and lower loopers are either too loose or too tight. When both loopers are too loose, the stitch will look balanced, but the loops will extend beyond the edges of the fabric. This may seem okay, but loose stitching can weaken the seam and allow seam allowances to fray. To remedy this problem, tighten both the upper and lower loopers a bit. Then do another test stitch to check. When both loopers are too tight, the edge of the fabric will get crumpled or curled by the stitch, and even the needle threads can be pulled out of shape on the underside. To fix this, loosen both the upper and lower loopers slightly and test again to check. Before moving on, let's summarize how to adjust the looper tensions. If the looper threads meet on the top side of the fabric, loosen the upper looper or tighten the lower looper. If the looper threads meet on the underside, loosen the lower looper or tighten the upper looper. If the loops extend off the edge of the fabric, tighten both loopers. And finally, if the fabric edge looks curled or crumpled, loosen both loopers. At this point, the looper tensions are properly adjusted, so you can turn your attention to the needle tensions. In a balanced stitch, the needle threads create a smooth line on the upper side of the fabric, and you should see little to almost no needle thread appearing on the underside of the fabric. It's best to adjust the left and right needle tensions separately. Start with the left needle. If a needle thread is too loose, you will see loops on the underside of the fabric. Try raising that needle's thread tension and check again with another test stitch. If a needle thread is too tight, the stitch will pucker. Try lowering the thread tension of that needle and test again to see the effect. Once you have adjusted the left needle, check and adjust the right needle. Once again, if you see loops on the underside, raise the tension. And if you see puckered stitches, lower the tension. Let's summarize how to adjust the needle tensions. If the needle stitches look loopy on the underside of the fabric, tighten the needle tension. And if the needle stitches look puckered, loosen the needle tension. Once you have properly adjusted both needle tensions, go back and do a quick double check of the looper tensions. They may need a bit of fine-tuning once the needle tensions have been balanced out. Now that you've seen the whole process, try it out for yourself. Make a set of tension samples specific to your serger by varying the thread tensions as you've seen here. Label each sample for future reference. Thread tension isn't a set and forget affair. The proper thread tension can vary according to several factors: the heaviness of the thread you're using, the heaviness of the fabric, as well as the stitch length and width. It's best to check the thread tension at the start of every project, using a scrap of fabric from your project as well as the threads you will be using. If you would like a written step-by-step description with photo illustrations, you'll find it and more in my ebook, Serger Bootcamp. The link is in the description. And if you find this tutorial helpful, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Sometimes a poor quality stitch can be due to issues other than incorrect tension settings. Perhaps the thread path is blocked in some way. For example, the thread guide pull is not extended. Or a thread cone is unwinding unevenly, and you need to cover the cone with a thread net to make it unwind consistently. The key difference between a tension problem and a thread path problem is that thread path problems tend to come and go, They'll be visible along the seam in some places, but not in others. Poor thread tension will show consistently along the length of the seam. In this photo, the 2 stitch samples on the left have incorrect thread tension. The 3 samples in the center have irregular stitch defects due to incorrect threading of the looper guide poles. Once I resolved the issue, the stitch came out clean, as shown to the right. If you have an auto tension serger, you should know that despite the manufacturer's claims, the thread tensions are not 100% automatic. You still have adjustments that affect thread tension and the quality of your stitch. Auto tension sergers often have a single control that you set on the basis of the type of fabric or serger stitch you are using. On the basis of this setting, the serger internally calibrates the thread tensions for you. If you are not getting good stitch results from your serger, check this setting. Earlier we looked at what happens when both looper tensions are too loose, which makes loops extend beyond the edge of the fabric, or too tight, which makes fabric edges curl or crumple. These issues can also affect auto tension sergers. Your serger may have a hidden trim control to fine-tune the overall looper tension. Turn it one way and it tightens thread tensions equally on both loopers. Turn it in the other direction and it loosens them. You may need to adjust this control when working with heavy or lightweight fabrics and threads. The manufacturer may not want to call attention to it, so it may be inconvenient to use. On this serger, for example, you must use a small screwdriver to adjust it. Always remember, test your tension settings before starting your project. For more videos like this one, like and subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated.